A Roman slave could be beaten for working too slowly, chained for trying to escape, branded, sold into a mine, forced into prostitution, or sent to die in an arena. And for much of Roman history, the person deciding your fate might not be a judge. It could simply be the person who owned you. That's the part people sometimes soften when they talk about Roman civilization. Beautiful temples, aqueducts, philosophy, law. Yeah, wonderful. And standing right behind all of that was a massive population of human beings legally treated as property. If your master was cruel, there was often nowhere to run. Start with something as simple as a beating. Roman household slaves could be whipped for disobedience, mistakes, theft, talking back, or basically whatever an angry owner decided deserved punishment. The whip wasn't some rare emergency measure. Physical violence was an accepted way of controlling enslaved workers. And imagine what that means inside a private home. No public trial, no lawyer, no human resources department coming to investigate why your boss just beat the shit out of you. Your master gives the order. Another slave might even be forced to hold you down. When it's finished, you're expected to get back to work. Escape made things much worse. A runaway slave threatened the entire system because Roman slavery depended on one basic idea. You belonged to somebody. So if you ran and got caught, punishment could be brutal. Some fugitives were whipped. Others were placed in chains or fitted with iron restraints. Runaways could also be marked so people would know exactly what they were. Branding was used in the Roman world, and enslaved people could be marked after escape or serious misconduct. Think about that. You finally get away. You're sleeping outside, hiding from patrols, terrified every time someone looks at you too long. Then you're captured. And now the punishment is designed not only to hurt you, but to make your attempt at freedom visible on your body. Okay, that's already horrible. But working inside a wealthy Roman home could still be considered one of the better outcomes, because there were places masters could send you that were basically slow death sentences. The mines were among the worst. People condemned or sold into mining worked underground in brutal conditions, cutting rock, carrying heavy loads, breathing dust, dealing with heat, darkness, injury, and exhaustion. You didn't need an executioner if you could simply work somebody until their body stopped functioning. Agricultural slaves could have it bad too, especially on large estates. Some were kept in chains. Roman writers describe slave work gangs in buildings called Ergastula, places where chained agricultural workers could be confined. Picture a locked work prison sitting on somebody's private estate. You wake up owned, you work owned, you eat owned, and when the door shuts at night, you're still owned. Very civilized. Then there was sexual exploitation, and there's really no reason to dance around this. Enslaved women, men, girls, and boys could be sexually used by owners because Roman law gave enslaved people almost no meaningful ability to refuse the people who controlled them. Sex with enslaved people wasn't treated the way we would treat sexual assault today. The social question often wasn't whether the slave wanted it. Their consent barely entered the equation. That is seriously fucked up. Some enslaved people were forced into prostitution. Others lived inside households where an owner could demand sexual access simply because the law and society placed almost all the power on one side. And if an enslaved woman became pregnant, her child normally followed her legal status. A child born to enslaved mother was enslaved too. So slavery could literally reproduce itself inside the household. A human being could be born already belonging to someone else. No crime, no debt, no choice, just born own. And somehow, Roman elite still managed to talk endlessly about liberty. The hypocrisy here is ridiculous. One of the ugliest stories about private cruelty involves a wealthy Roman named Vedius Pollio. Pollio was enormously rich and connected to Augustus, the first Roman emperor. According to ancient sources, Pollio had a particularly vicious punishment waiting for slaves who angered him. He kept large predatory fish, traditionally described as lampreys or moray-like creatures, and supposedly ordered condemned slaves thrown into the pool. Then one day, during a dinner attended by Augustus, an enslaved boy broke a crystal cup. That was his crime. He broke a cup. Pollio ordered the boy killed by being thrown to the fish. Jesus, the boy reportedly escaped his handlers long enough to throw himself at Augustus and beg for mercy. Now notice what's happening here. The slave isn't asking for compensation. He isn't asking for another job. He's begging not to be murdered because he dropped tableware. Augustus stopped the execution. Then, according to the story, he ordered Pollio's expensive crystal cups smashed. It's a satisfying ending for about 5 seconds. Then you realize something. The slave survived because the emperor happened to be sitting there. What happened when Augustus wasn't at dinner? That's the terrifying part. There were eventually limits placed on how far owners could go. Roman emperors issued laws restricting extreme abuse and arbitrary killing. But laws like that tell you something uncomfortable. You don't create rules against masters killing slaves because nobody was doing it. And even where legal protection existed, an enslaved person still had to somehow survive long enough for somebody powerful to care. For slaves accused of serious crimes, revolt, or rebellion, punishment could move beyond the household and become public terror. Crucifixion was strongly associated with slaves and people of low status. Rome didn't just use it to kill, it used it to make a point. The victim was displayed publicly, sometimes along major roads, so everybody passing could see what happened to people who challenged Roman authority. After the revolt led by Spartacus was crushed in 71 BCE, ancient accounts say thousands of captured rebels were crucified along the Appian Way. Imagine traveling toward Rome and seeing crosses stretching along the road, one after another, bodies hanging above you. That wasn't only punishment. It was advertising. Rome was saying, this is what happens when slaves stop obeying. And the arena offered another nightmare. Enslaved people and condemned criminals could be forced into deadly public spectacles. Some were made to fight. Others were executed as entertainment, sometimes against wild animals. The crowd watched. People ate. People cheered. Someone died. Next performance. Ah yes, the glory of Rome. Even gladiators, some of the most famous enslaved people in Roman culture, lived inside that contradiction. A successful gladiator might become a celebrity. People could admire him. Women could desire him. Crowds could scream his name. And he could still be property. Imagine being famous enough that thousands of people recognize your face, but not free enough to decide whether you fight tomorrow. That's Roman slavery in one image. There were masters who treated enslaved people better. Some slaves earned money. Some were educated. Some became trusted household managers. And many were eventually freed. But don't confuse better treatment with freedom. A comfortable slave was still a slave. Your family could be separated by sale. Your body could be punished. Your labor belonged to someone else. Your owner could decide where you lived, what work you did, and in many cases who had access to your body. And if your master happened to be a monster, maybe you got lucky and an emperor was sitting nearby when you dropped the cup. Most people weren't that lucky. For millions of enslaved people across Rome's long history, the most frightening sound probably wasn't a lion roaring in an arena or soldiers approaching with chains. It was something much simpler, their owner calling their name, because once that happened, what came next could depend entirely on the mood of the person who legally owned their body.